one of the problems that the medical marijuana dispensaries in Colorado have been having, and actually all around the country where it's legal for medical marijuana and now recreational marijuana, is that the banks don't want to handle their money because the federal laws call that money laundering. They make it a crime because it's still illegal at the federal level, and the banks are federally chartered or federally regulated anyway. And so they're kind of freaked out about this. So could this be an opportunity for Washington State to do what North Dakota did back in 1916, I think it was, and create a state bank or something like it? Senator Bob Hasegawa is with us. He is a state senator representing the 11th District of the state of Washington. His website, sdc.wa.gov. And Senator, welcome to the program.
Hi, Tom. Great to be here.
Thank you for joining us. I understand that you are participating in or knowledgeable about legislation that will solve this banking problem that these marijuana dispensaries will have or are having.
Well, it won't necessarily solve it. It just it's a very complicated issue, and I've been working on this state bank proposal for a bunch of years now, and every year we kind of skinny it down every year, trying to get the legislators to pay closer attention to it. But we had this opportunity last year when the people of Washington State passed Initiative 502, which legalized recreational marijuana. And that is going to create this huge multi-million-dollar marketplace. The only problem is that it's totally unbankable. So we saw an opportunity to use this as the most recent iteration to try and get a foot in the door to create our own state bank.
That would be really great. And the benefits of a state bank, my understanding of the benefits of a state bank and why it's worked so well in North Dakota all these years is that the state does millions of dollars or maybe billions of dollars a year in banking, and they pay fees for that banking. If they own the bank, those fees come back to them, and they go to in your benefit to the people. If they have pension funds and things invested, there's all kinds of activities that the state engages with banks, and right now, every state except North Dakota is using Wall Street banks, basically, the big banks, to do these things. And if the state was to do these things, the profit from all that banking would stay inside the state. Do I have that right?
That's exactly right. You know, when you talk to people, constituents out there, average person, it's a no-brainer. And they can't understand why we don't take it seriously. But
you could lower taxes with this.
And streamline government at the same time, because, you know, the state has tons of lending programs out there, but they're all basically just loan programs where, you know, you borrow and you repay and you borrow and repay, and you're not actually using the leverage capability that you could really get from using it as a state depository.
Is it because those lending programs that the state has are administered by the big banks?
I don't know that that's necessarily the reason. The revolving loan accounts, it's just people are kind of afraid of thinking so far out of the box because it's not ever been done here.
Yeah.
And so it's an educational process to just go out on the stump and talk. So I've talked with tons of organizations around the state, including public utility districts and county treasurers and whatnot, just trying to introduce them to the concept. And right. I haven't got a real negative response from anybody. In fact, I've got quite a positive response from several of these organizations. Does
your state, like many states, have contracts with Bank of America? I think is the largest that does this. I think Wells Fargo does some of them. For welfare recipients of various types, you know, food stamps, whatnot, but any state benefits where people get basically a debit card, and the banks, of course, charge a fee to the state for that, which if it was a state bank, you'd recover that fee, or you wouldn't have to pay the fee. Does the state of Washington use any service like that too?
Yeah, I believe that, the Bank of America is where we have our main concentration account, which is the state's main checking account, but I believe that we have an arrangement with Chase to do the debit card thing for our social services.
Yeah. And so that's another area where, you know, Chase isn't going to be real happy. They're going to lose millions of dollars in profit. Bank of America is going to lose millions of dollars in profit, maybe more.
What's really interesting, though, is the bond brokers and the bonding industry this is foremost on their radar screen, I believe, because, you know, over a period of time, the state builds its capacity where we would no longer have to sell bonds to finance their capital infrastructure.
Wow.
So they stand, for instance, right now, the debt service line in our appropriations budget is $2 billion. That's just money going out the window, to pay interest on.
That's profit for the banks.
Exactly. So, like North Dakota, you end up borrowing from yourselves. The taxpayers borrowing the right pocket from the left pocket and paying yourself back interest.
Right.
And it's really an elegant solution. In fact, most industrialized countries in the world, this is how they built their infrastructure, was financing it by themselves.
Huh. That's interesting.
If you look at
I wonder if
Germany, for instance, Germany has a great public banking network. So they are on such sound footing that the whole European Union is kind of looking at Germany to keep them afloat
right.
because Germany has the capacity to be able to do it.
Fascinating. So the recreational marijuana law may open the door to this. What kind of response are you getting? What do you think the odds are that this will get passed through the legislature there in the state of Washington? We're talking with State Senator Bob Hasegawa.
It's still iffy. It's still a pretty out-of-the-box concept, although the legislature has considered. We've had hearings on the bill over the years, for the last 4 years, 5 years maybe.
But now you have a crisis. I mean, you're going to have millions of dollars.
And what's interesting is it's the only alternative available right now, short of Congress passing a law that removes marijuana from the Schedule I controlled substance list, which
right.
I don't put any faith in Congress to doing something like that.
Do you know if any of your colleagues in Colorado are doing the same thing or contemplating the same thing in Colorado?
I've run across a couple of Colorado representatives in national gatherings, but no, I don't think that they've been looking into this as a possible solution.
Because this,
one thing about using marijuana as the vehicle, though, to get the foot in the door is it brings along a whole different problem set that a bank on the lines of the Bank of North Dakota does not have to face. It's the whole federal regulatory system around Schedule I controlled substances.
So now you've got a bank that, even though it's a state bank, it's basically operating in violation of federal law.
Correct. And there's no getting around that. However, we have a letter from the U.S. Attorney General's office that said, make no mistake, it is an illegal substance still. But due to their limited resources, if we follow 8 guidelines and do our due diligence to make sure that it stays out of the hands of kids, that it's not supporting organized crime, it's not passing state lines, that sort of thing, if we do our due diligence to adhere to his guidelines, then they'll direct their limited resources to more efficient uses.
That's great. That's why I mean, they really have no choice but to do that because the people have spoken. I mean, this is people have spoken.
The real question boils down to there is no zero risk involved with this effort.
Sure.
The question is, what is the acceptable level of risk the state's willing to take?
Yeah. Well, good luck on it, sir. I wish you the very best.
Thank you so much. I'm excited about the prospect.
Me too. State Senator Bob Hasegawa, and representing the 11th District of the state of Washington. Thank you so much for being with us today.
And you're doing great work for the.
This is the Thom